Have you ever pondered on the question of what might be floating in our skies, unseen to the naked eye? Imagine for a moment that the air around us, the very atmosphere we breathe, is not as pristine as we'd like to believe. It's a startling reality that our environment, even the spaces we can't touch or see, is teeming with a type of pollution called microplastics. Microplastics, as the name suggests, are tiny pieces of plastic less than 5 millimeters in length. They are ubiquitous, found in the deepest trenches of our oceans, to the highest peaks of our mountains, and yes, even in the air we breathe. But how do these tiny particles end up in our atmosphere? Enter the phenomenon of atmospheric transport. Atmospheric transport is like nature's conveyor belt, moving particles, gas, and moisture around the globe. It's the reason why dust from the Sahara can end up fertilizing the Amazon rainforest, and why pollution from a factory halfway across the world can affect the air quality in your backyard. And it's the same process that allows microplastics to take flight, traveling great distances, and potentially interacting with cloud processes. Clouds, those fluffy, cotton candy-like formations in the sky, are more than just water droplets. They are complex systems influenced by various atmospheric components including dust, smoke, and now, it seems, microplastics. Recent studies have shown evidence of microplastics in cloud water samples, suggesting these tiny particles might contribute to cloud formation, potentially influencing weather patterns. But the relationship between microplastics and clouds is still a mystery. More research is needed to fully understand how these tiny particles affect cloud formation and, consequently, our weather. It's a fascinating, albeit concerning reality we're just beginning to uncover. As we delve deeper into this topic, we find that clouds are not just made up of water droplets, but might also contain microplastics. So the next time you gaze up at the sky, spare a thought for the invisible particles dancing in the air and the mysteries they hold. Imagine standing atop a mountain, not just to admire the view, but to collect samples of clouds. Sounds intriguing, doesn't it? This is exactly what a team of scientists did on the peaks of Mount Tai in eastern China. But why, you might ask? Their mission was to investigate the presence of microplastics in clouds, those tiny fragments of plastic less than 5 millimeters in size that are becoming an increasingly concerning environmental issue. The scientists collected a total of 28 samples of liquid from clouds at the top of Mount Tai. The process was meticulous, ensuring each sample was free from contamination. Then began the task of analyzing these samples, looking for the telltale signs of microplastics. What they found was both surprising and concerning. The samples revealed a significant presence of microplastics. Moreover, these tiny particles were more abundant in low-altitude and denser clouds. The microplastics they discovered were made of common polymers, such as polyethylene terephthalate, polypropylene, polyethylene, polystyrene, and polyamide. Their sizes varied, with some particles smaller than 100 micrometers, while others were as long as 1,500 micrometers. These findings suggest that the clouds above our heads are not just carriers of water droplets, but also of microscopic fragments of plastic. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? The very air we breathe, the clouds that bring us our weather, are becoming repositories for our discarded plastic. But this investigation is not just about identifying the problem, it's also about understanding the journey these particles make and how they interact with the environment. Through this, we can begin to comprehend the full implications of this issue for our planet and find ways to address it. The clouds above us, it seems, carry more than just the promise of rain. They may also be transporting tiny particles of plastic. So the next time you look up at the sky, remember there's more to those clouds than meets the eye. So what exactly are these microplastics found in the clouds made of, you may ask? Well, scientists have discovered that these tiny particles consist of various common polymers. These include polyethylene terephthalate, polypropylene, polyethylene, polystyrene, and polyamide. In layman's terms, these polymers are the stuff our everyday plastics are made of, from water bottles to food containers to synthetic fibers. The size of these microplastics is also fascinating. They are incredibly small, with most of them being less than 100 micrometers. That's smaller than the width of a human hair. However, some of these particles can be as long as 1,500 micrometers. That's about the size of a sesame seed. What's even more intriguing is the age and condition of these particles. Older, rougher particles were found to have higher concentrations of certain elements attached to their surfaces. These elements include lead, mercury, and oxygen. These might sound like a random assortment of elements, but they're not. They play a crucial role in the cloud formation process. Why does this matter? Well, these elements can act as a sort of catalyst, facilitating the formation of clouds. The rougher the surface of the microplastic, the more of these elements it carries, and the more likely it is to contribute to cloud formation. This suggests that these tiny particles can have a significant impact on our weather patterns and, ultimately, our climate. But it's not just about the weather. These particles, carrying heavy metals like lead and mercury, can also have potential implications for human health and the environment. Once in the atmosphere, they can travel great distances, carrying these harmful substances with them. These tiny particles, it seems, are not so simple after all. They carry with them a complex mix of elements that could significantly impact our environment. As we continue to unravel the mysteries of microplastics in our atmosphere, one thing is clear. Our understanding of their composition and impact is just the tip of the iceberg. From where do these microscopic travelers embark on their aerial journey? This is the question that drove Yan Wang and her team to use computer models, tracing the microplastics journey back to their origin. In this fascinating detective story, scientists began by collecting liquid samples from the clouds at the summit of Mount Tai in eastern China. They then analyzed these samples, discovering a higher concentration of microplastics in low-altitude and denser clouds. But the question remained, how did these microplastics get there? To solve this mystery, the team turned to computer modeling. The models they developed were designed to simulate the plastic particles' pathways, helping them determine how these tiny particles traveled such great distances to reach the clouds above Mount Tai. The results were both enlightening and surprising. The computer models proposed that the primary source of the microplastics was not the ocean or neighboring mountains, as one might expect. Instead, the models suggested that the main source was something much closer to home, the airflow from densely populated interior areas. That's right, our cities and towns appear to be the main culprits. Everyday items that we use, made of common polymers such as polyethylene terephthalate, polypropylene, polyethylene, polystyrene, and polyamide, break down into microplastics. These particles then get caught in the wind, traveling far and wide, eventually finding their way into the clouds. Moreover, the models showed that these particles were not just passively transported. They also interacted with their environment along the way. The scientists found that microplastics exposed to UV radiation and cloud-sourced water had rougher surfaces and smaller diameters than those exposed to pure air or water. This suggests that the journey these particles take and the conditions they encounter could also play a role in their potential to influence cloud formation and weather patterns. Our actions, it seems, have far-reaching effects, even extending to the clouds above us. We must continue to investigate and understand these impacts, as our lives are ever more intertwined with these microscopic travelers in the sky. So, what does all of this mean for our clouds, our weather, and ultimately our planet? Good question, and one that scientists are working tirelessly to answer. Let's dive into the lab studies. Here, scientists exposed microplastics to UV radiation and filtered cloud-sourced water. What they found was fascinating. The microplastics underwent changes, their surfaces becoming rougher and their diameters shrinking. These altered particles also showed higher concentrations of oxygen-containing groups, lead, and mercury. Why does this matter? Well, these changes could significantly affect cloud formation. The rougher surfaces and smaller diameters of the microplastics make them more likely to interact with other particles in the atmosphere, potentially facilitating the formation of clouds. Moreover, the increased presence of oxygen, lead, and mercury on the surface of these particles could also influence the properties of the clouds they help form. But this is just the beginning. Researchers also discovered that clouds modify microplastics in ways that could enable these particles to affect cloud formation and the fate of airborne metals. This means that microplastics could be playing a role in the larger atmospheric processes that govern our weather patterns. Yet there's so much we still don't know. This is a relatively new field of study, and while these initial findings are intriguing, they also highlight the need for further research. We need to fully understand the impact of microplastics on clouds, weather, and by extension, our climate. This is crucial work. Every day we're learning more about how our actions, such as the widespread use of plastics, are impacting our planet. And as we continue to investigate, we're realizing that these effects are far-reaching, extending even into the clouds above us. So, as we continue to unravel the mysteries of our atmosphere, let us remember that our actions today will shape the world of tomorrow.